Hey there, everyone. So, how you all doing? So, it's Emma here from Fortified. With all of the chaos that's going on around the world at the moment, I just wanted to try and pull something together just to offer some suggestions on how we might be able to cope with COVID. So, I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen here um, for you all. So, hopefully, you will all be able to see that. And so I just wanted to kind of pull together just a really short presentation with a couple of perhaps strategies that I'm really hoping might be helpful for you to be able to manage all the chaos that's kind of going on at this point in time. So, for anyone who doesn't know me, my name's Emma Boucher. I've worked in mental health for almost 25 years now. It was probably about 15 years or so ago that I made some changes to my diet, and I just felt great. Was sleeping better, my mood was great, had a lot more energy, great skin, and I started thinking, well, if making changes to my diet made such a difference for me, then surely there's got to be something in this, and there must be something linked that I can help my clients with as well. So I started looking at nutritional deficiencies in mental health, and then kind of started delving deeper into that. I realized I was really quite passionate about nutrition, and so I decided to add some nutrition qualifications into my psych degree. I then did my first herbal medicine subject, and I really liked the holistic philosophy of natural medicine. So I ended up graduating as a naturopath. And so, as a naturopath and a psychologist, I guess that makes me a bit of a psychopath, right? So, yeah, I know, bad dad joke. Bad dad joke. So, as I said, some of you already know me from the Fortitude, which of course is the fortified attitude. So here at Fortified, we don't just believe in physical fitness, we believe just as strongly, just as powerfully in their mental fitness as well. And so, of course, that very much includes mental strength, mental flexibility, so our capacity to be able to adapt to new, to unusual situations. Endurance is something that's really quite core in terms of mental fitness. And then, of course, team, so who is it that's on your team, both from a physical perspective, but also from a mental health perspective? And so here's just a nice little definition around what fortitude actually is. And so the fortitude, as I said earlier, is kind of that, it's the fortified attitude, the mindset, which helps us to be able to grow and manage adversity. So, there's a lot of adversity going on for people at this point in time. There's a lot of stress, a lot of overwhelm, a lot of uncertainty. And so I just wanted to start a little bit by explaining what anxiety actually is, and to help you have an understanding of what might be going on for you. Because if we understand what's happening, then it makes it a lot easier to be able to deal with it. So I'm sure most of you would have heard of the fight or flight response, or adrenaline. So this is a process that we're born, all of us are born being able to experience. And if we kind of take it back to caveman days, it essentially protects us from danger. So if I'm walking along the street and I see a saber-toothed tiger, my body releases about 15 different chemicals, which put me on high alert to be able to deal with that saber-toothed tiger. And my initial instinct will be either to fight the tiger or to turn around and run. A whole bunch of stuff that happens in my body at that point in time, though. So my heart rate will start to increase, and that's to pump more blood around into my major muscle groups. Now, the blood has to come from somewhere, right? So it moves from what's considered non-essential processes. So it moves from our digestion, which is why we feel like we've been punched in the stomach if we get some really, really bad news. And so that blood moves from major muscle groups, but also up to my brain, so I can make a split-second decision in order to deal with the saber-toothed tiger. My breathing rate also starts to increase to get more oxygen into the blood flow, because that helps to carry all of the nutrients that will give me that really big burst of energy to either fight the tiger or to turn around and flight, to turn around and run. That my body temperature starts to increase, therefore so does my perspiration level, because that's my body's natural way of cooling things. That all of my muscles contract to prepare for injury or impact. That my perception of time will change. So a lot of people will say in a car accident, that it felt like it happened in slow motion, but at the same time it happened really, really quickly as well. what happens cognitively is that I get a tunnel vision on the saber-toothed tiger. I don't want to be thinking about what I'm doing on the weekend. I want to be focused on the threat. I want to be focused on that immediate danger. So I get this tunnel vision. My thinking speeds up. My capacity to be able to problem solve also improves. So what my mind is doing is I jump ahead to the future to try and predict that problem, but then my problem solving improves to try and anticipate what's going to happen. So what does that look like? It's essentially me jumping ahead, kind of going, what's the saber-tooth tiger going to do next? What am I going to do after that? And at the same time, all of my senses become heightened. So I'm listening for, any danger behind me, anywhere that I can't see. All of my senses are heightened. I'm looking, I see a block of wood, I jump ahead, I think, can I get to that piece of wood to protect myself before the tiger gets to me? Is there more of a danger from a car or another tiger behind a bush over there? And so all of my senses become heightened to make a split-second decision on how I'm going to protect myself. What also happens mentally, though, is so I jump ahead to the future, try and predict the future, but I go back to the past. And it happens really quickly, but I start thinking, when have I dealt with the saber-toothed tiger before? What did I do then? What worked then? How can I use those same strategies now? So this all happens really quickly up here, and it's all about survival. So let's say I turn around and run, I climb a tree, go over a fence, I protected myself from that saber-toothed tiger. Now, within anywhere between half an hour up to about 2 or 3 hours, that level of alertness will start to settle down. I'll come back to my baseline, but that will very much depend on what my baseline was to start off with. So we know that there's two types of threats in life. One is what we call an external threat. That's a saber-toothed tiger. That's a car accident. That's, a threatened assault. So it's something external to me. And then we have what we call an internal threat. Now, more often that's a threat to the quality of our life rather than our life itself. So that could be threat to my reputation, my integrity, my financial security, my emotional security. But the thing is that my primitive brain, my reptilian brain, doesn't actually tell the difference between an internal threat and an external threat, and it will release the adrenaline in exactly the same way. It may not be as physically noticeable with an internal threat, however, exact same process is going on. So a really good example of that is a job interview. So before the job interview, you may notice you get butterflies, or you may notice sweaty palms. But what that also means is your thinking has sped up. Your capacity to jump ahead to the future has improved. What question will they ask me next? Oh yeah, I can prepare and I can anticipate how this job interview is going to go. But also your memory improves. Oh yeah, I did that at my last job. And so this adrenaline is actually a really, really good thing, but only when it's in moderation. So we can say that the adrenaline, that the anxiety kind of does three things for us. It helps to protect us from the saber-toothed tigers in life, helps to protect us from the dangers in the moment. It also helps us to plan to avoid them. But what it also does, it helps us to prepare when we know we're going to be faced with a danger. So it's the adrenaline that if you get unexpected financial situation, it's the adrenaline that helps you to think clearer, to get the tunnel vision, to be able to problem solve in order to be able to move money around, to ring up to get an extension. So all of these things help improve us, whether it's giving a presentation, whether it's financial stress, whether it's a health crisis. So for the majority of people within the world right now, there's going to be a lot of this adrenaline going on. So let's look at how we might be able to deal with some of this stress and how it might be coming out for us. So I've come up with a little bit of an acronym to help you to remember just some really kind of some basic skills. Some of the skills are going to work better in some situations than others, but just a way to try and think about, well, what can I do to make a difference? What can I do to help manage this really uncertain time? Because about the only thing that we know is certain is that the word unprecedented has been used an unprecedented amount of time. That day by day restrictions are changing, and probably even by the time this video gets uploaded, there'll be more restrictions here within Australia, and that causes a lot of stress. It's one of those internal stresses. So the adrenaline gets activated, we get tunnel vision, and what can happen is that can become this little bit of a spiral. The more I focus on the restrictions, the more I focus on the things that are dangerous to me, the more adrenaline gets released in my body. My body says danger, danger. The more that speeds up my thinking, the more I get a narrow focus. And so it can become this perpetual cycle. So let's talk about some ways that we can start to do things differently, hey? So let's look at focusing on what you can control. What we're aiming to do here is kind of start to take the blinkers off a little bit from that tunnel vision. Now, I'm not sitting here pretending this is easy on any level. It's simple, but it's not always easy. And again, this fight or flight response, it's a really primitive response and it's about survival. So it's not always easy to go against what our hormones, what our chemicals are telling us to do. And so often we need to make that really conscious effort to kind of go, okay, my focus is on the threat, on the potential danger here in terms of the virus, the safety of myself, my economic safety, my emotional safety. It's not always easy to take the blinkers off, but to think about what you can control. Your business may have been shut down. That is absolutely devastating. And some of those effects we're really not going to fully see for coming weeks or coming months across the globe. But as the adrenaline kind of drags you further into that tunnel vision on the threat, see if you can take those blinkers off and focus on what you can control, things that are within your power. You know, what is it that you can do? Can you still work from home? Can you look at going online? Look at how you can focus on your strengths of creativity or gratitude or kindness, looking at what is still within your control. It might be that exercise and diet is something that you really want to focus on. It may be that you decide you want to learn a foreign language at this point in time now that you've got more time available on your hands. So really focusing on what it is that you can control. Another kind of working definition I often use with my clients, which they sometimes find helpful, is to look at the difference between fear, anxiety, and worry. So fear is very strong a physical and emotional response that gets activated at the time of the threat. So that's when I'm standing right there in front of the saber-toothed tiger. So it's very strong emotional reaction. It's also typically, it's very strong physically as well. And so that's me, walking my dog in the morning and another dog comes out and it tries to attack me and my dog. And so that's going to activate fear, activates all of that adrenaline. Then we have anxiety. Anxiety is a cognitive definition, and anxiety is, it's about me thinking. And anxiety is so often about the future. And so what does anxiety look like? Oh, what if I go for a walk tomorrow and that dog is out again? So anxiety is often about the what ifs. And so the anxiety takes me into the future. I start thinking, well, what if this happens? But anxiety is also about taking action. So what do? I take action. I ring up the owner and say, hey, your dog was out this morning. You know, I just want to let you know so that we can kind of keep everyone safe here. So anxiety is about the what ifs for the future, but anxiety is also about taking action to prevent that danger from occurring in the future. So we've got fear, we've got anxiety, and then we have worry. So what happens with worry? Worry gets us stuck. We get totally immobilized. So with worry, I start thinking, oh, what if I go for a walk tomorrow and the dog's out? And what if I call the owner and the owner's just as aggressive as that dog was? And what if I go the other way and then there was another dog and, I'm just not going to go for a walk at all. So with worry, our world gets smaller and smaller and smaller and we become immobilized. So using that working definition of fear, anxiety, and worry, asking yourself, what's actually going on for me here? They're all really valid emotions, but if you notice that you're experiencing a lot of worry, then ask yourself, well, is there anything within my control that I can bring back to anxiety and to take some action? What can I do in this situation? What is within my control versus the adrenaline that keeps that tunnel vision focusing on the threat, which is often outside of our control. Something else that can be really helpful in terms of focusing on what you can control is the concept of snooze the news. Look, the news is really helpful in some situations, but I think when we're facing a pandemic such as this and when there is so much widespread global distress, watching news 24/7 is not going to be helpful for anyone. I actually recommend no more than 30 minutes per day. Why? Because there's already enough stress that's going on for us. We don't want to be hearing about it all of the time. We actually need to learn how to stop and take a break and step away from it. So snooze the news. Now, that's not to say that you don't want to keep yourself informed. Here in Australia, every state is slightly different, but pretty much every day or every second day, we've got new restrictions coming through. And so it's important for us to know that without a doubt. But for me personally, I'm going straight to those announcements rather than getting that information secondhand on the news or via social media where I'm hearing other people's interpretations. So my recommendation is go straight to the source, but limit the amount of time that you spend getting information, because otherwise what's going to end up happening is you're going to end up in a state of stress 24/7. So focus on what you can control, really limit. So snooze the news. The other thing that might be worth considering is, in terms of focusing on what you can control, is identifying what resources are available for you. Is that family? Is that friends? What online resources are available? I mean, my inbox is just really blowing up with how to go online with businesses, how to continue to support clients. For anyone who doesn't know, at least in Australia, as of today, Monday the 30th, I think it is. As of today, there's some new telehealth Medicare item numbers, which mean that different health professionals, such as psychologists, can now provide teleconferencing or video conferencing Medicare rebates for clients. And so that up until now has only been available to more vulnerable people. And so now that's across the board. So identify what your resources are. Could be a neighbour that you're chatting with over the fence, of course, social distancing rules apply. Could be a family member, could be a friend, could be professional. Resources include us here at Fortified. Drop us a line, give us a call. We're here to help. We want you to be as well as you possibly can be during this, unprecedented time in crisis. So identify what resources are available to you locally. Definitely, financial packages that the government are resourcing, any other online resources that are available. So really spread that net quite broad in terms of your search for resources. What does the O stand for? That's really about trying to get outside. It can get really stuffy when you're stuck inside. I think probably, I don't know what, 3/4, maybe 80% of the Australian population is now that still have jobs now have been, been working out of home for maybe a week, maybe even longer now. So if we're really cooped up inside, that can have a really big influence on our respiratory system, on just our overall health. So I really recommend getting outside. You might not be able to get down the park, you might not be able to get down the end of your street, depending on the particular restrictions where you are, but might be your balcony, it might be your backyard, but get outside. Get outside regularly, take some nice deep breaths, even kick off your feet, stand on the grass. If your kids are there, run around with them, really get outside and take regular breaks. Absolutely take regular breaks. For the R in Fortitude, rest and relaxation. And so the rest is really about getting enough sleep. Now, this can be a little bit of a catch-22, because what does adrenaline do? Adrenaline speeds us up. What is sleep about? Sleep is about our autonomic nervous system slowing down, the parasympathetic part of our nervous system slowing down to rest, to relax, and then eventually be able to fall off to sleep. So try to ensure that you can at least get 8 hours rest, even if it's not sleeping. It's going to be really helpful for you in terms of being able to work on your mental fitness, being able to work on your resilience over the coming weeks and even the coming months, and for some people it could even be coming years. So a couple of suggestions there in terms of resting. I suggest maybe using technology. Set an alarm half an hour before you want to go to bed, and then that's your little signal to turn off technology from here on in. Go back to an old-fashioned book. Some of you may be aware of the impact of the blue light from the screens. Now, what that essentially does, serotonin, which is one of our feel-good neurotransmitters, it converts to melatonin, which helps to regulate our sleep-wake cycle. So there's been a fair bit of research in recent years in terms of the impact of blue light, which comes from our devices, on the production of melatonin. And essentially, it kind of turns off the production of melatonin. And so that means we're less likely to actually feel tired. So I recommend half an hour before you're due to go to bed, go and have a nice, relaxing, warm shower or jump in the bath. Maybe some oils are your thing, maybe they're not, but just something that's going to help to calm you. Go back to the old fashioned reading a book or a device that doesn't use blue light as a way of calming the body to get enough rest. Then, of course, the other part of art is relaxation. So what can you do to relax? And again, I'm not suggesting that this is easy to do. Why? Because the adrenaline is activating our nervous system. Relaxation is about stopping and slowing down. But, what we're talking about here are things that help to give you pleasure, things that naturally produce serotonin. What does serotonin do? It helps us to feel good. It regulates our energy and it regulates our appetite. So serotonin is one of those feel-good neurotransmitters. And so it gets released when we read a good book, when we spend time with family and friends, of course, social distancing rules apply, when we get creative and do a painting, when we spend time playing with our kids, when we're patting the dog. So think about some ways that you can still include some of these leisure, some of these feel-good type activities. And now might be a chance to kind of write down a list, a bucket list, in a sense, of all those things that you wanted to do around the home, and maybe you might have some time to do them. The other thing I wanted to mention about rest is that whilst we're sleeping, our body is healing and our body is energizing. So what tends to happen if we're not getting enough sleep, or if we're not getting a good quality sleep, when we wake up in the morning, we will tend to go to external stimulants to give us that energy. What does that look like? Caffeinated drinks, or energy drinks, and sugars. So they tend to be the external stimulants we'll go to give us the energy if we're not getting that from our sleep. And so what we know, particularly with anything caffeinated or any of the energy drinks, what do? They essentially tell your adrenal glands that you're being chased by a saber-toothed tiger. So it becomes this perpetual cycle. We're not sleeping so well, we're going for external stimulants. Those stimulants speed up our adrenal glands, which then perpetuate the stress. So if you can look at breaking that cycle by resting for at least 8 hours, if you wake up in the middle of the night, distract yourself with a meditation app or mindfulness or relaxation or reading a book, at least rest, and you're going to feel a lot better the next day than if you're tossing and turning all day. Yeah. What does the T stand for in Fortitude? Now that's time management. So, there's lots of things I speak with my clients about in terms of time management. This one I've been saying for well over 2 decades now, but it's essentially just touch each piece of paper just once. Now, given the fact I'm talking about paper, you can probably tell how long I've been offering this suggestion for. So, let's think about it. How often do we double or triple or quadruple up on activities? So think about it. How often do you read an email and kind of go, oh yeah, I'll deal with that later? But then you start formulating it in your head. Yeah, I'll write this, I'll write that. And then you go to another email, and then you come back, and then you log onto your internet banking, and then you come back to the email. So essentially what you've done is quite possibly 3 or 4 times you've opened up email, but you haven't actioned it at all. But a lot of energy, a lot of time has gone mentally into that particular email. So the concept of only touch each piece of paper once, so it's going back to the good old days of where we would get paper in the mail. We would kind of flip through the mail. We would know what it is, but we wouldn't open it, but mentally we would prepare for how we were going to respond to that. So it's just touching it once. So a lot of the time we can tell from who the email is or what the header is, what may be required. Not always, but a lot of the time, right? So I suggest scheduling in time to deal with your emails, but only open them once. Open it, set yourself enough time to action it, and then uh, delete it, put it in a folder, whatever your particular filing system is. But look at how can you only do it once. Try and avoid having multiple tabs open, just looking at one tab open at a time. Um, why do I want to talk about time management? Because with stress, our thinking speeds up. And that's going to mean that your concentration and your focus isn't going to be as good as it's used to be. On average, our attention span is actually about 12 seconds. Why is that? Because around every 10 seconds, we have a new thought. So we'll have over 50,000 thoughts a day. You add adrenaline into the mix, and that's going to speed things up. So that's really going to impact on your capacity to be able to focus on the tasks that need to be done. And often this is the reason why we go from our internet browser to our email client, and then to our phone, and then back and forth, without actually finishing off many tasks, because we just get distracted by technology. In fact, there's been some research that suggests we get distracted by technology about every 9 seconds. So that's actually faster than how often we have a new thought. So every 10 seconds we have a new thought. If that thought's really interesting, we're going to get distracted by it. So thinking about how you schedule your time, and so trying to schedule in time for emails, for whatever you need to do in terms of your work role. I also recommend scheduling times for a break. And again, here's where we use technology to our advantage. Maybe that's 5 minutes every hour, but most definitely morning tea, afternoon tea, and a lunch break. If you're working from home, get up from your home office space and leave that space. Get outside, get some fresh air, chat with family and friends if possible, but really thinking about that time management aspect and how you want to manage the time that you're working from home, and really try and stick to your working hours. Now, with technology, we can pretty much work, well, not all of us, but a lot of us can work from anywhere, but that means we're really glued to technology as well. So part of time management is setting yourself a limit at the end of the day, say from 7:30, 8 o'clock. Don't check your emails, don't log on to any work systems after that point in time. Another thing I wanted to say in terms of time management was looking at how you could turn off your notifications on your devices as well. Because, like I said, that 9 second, every 9 seconds we get interrupted by technology. Because if you're working on your laptop, your phone starts dinging, of course, it's instinct that you're going to turn to your device. So if you turn off those notifications, that helps you to be able to focus, make the most of your time, particularly if that adrenaline is speeding up your thinking process. Also, one last thing to consider with time management is the concept of sticking with your routine. As humans, we very much are creatures of habit, and routine helps to give us security, helps us to provide stability. So still trying to stick with your routine. So getting up at the same time as you normally would for a work day, doing whatever you normally would in the morning. You might have more time now that you're not commuting, so that's a bonus, right? So that could be time that you want to schedule in your exercise and your daily movement. But getting up, still having a shower, getting dressed, still thinking about that morning routine as you prepare for work. So that routine is really, really important. So what does the I stand for in Fortitude? So that's increasing self-care. Now, self-care looks slightly different for everyone. And as I kind of mentioned earlier with these particular strategies, that there'll be different things that'll work for different people and at different time frames as well. So here's just a couple of ideas. Um, Anyone who's ever done yoga would have heard of yoga nidra. So progressive muscle relaxation is essentially the more modern version of what yogis have been doing for centuries. And so you progressively, as the name suggests, works through each of your individual muscle groups. So there's some excellent apps where they'll give you a guided audio, usually starting off at your toes, tensing the muscles and then relaxing. And what you do is you just work through each muscle group. You'll probably get to perhaps about your knee, and then your mind has wandered off, thought about something else. Welcome to being human. Happens for us all. The great thing about a track is that you can just tune in again to that audio and bring yourself back and be focused. So big fan of that. That can really help to reduce some of the stress coming from your adrenal glands. Um, mindfulness sometimes gets a bit confused with meditation. Meditation generally has a spiritual or a philosophical approach behind it. Mindfulness, though, my working definition, mindfulness is awareness without judgment. So it's just being aware of what's going on right here, right now, without judging. Right here, right now. It's awareness of the thoughts without judging the thoughts, awareness of physical emotions or physical sensations without judging them. But at the same time, I'm as aware of my internal experience as I am of my external experience. And so mindfulness is really about learning the skill of being present when so often the adrenaline takes us into the future or takes us back on the past. For some people, journaling or writing is going to be a great way to take care. And I suggest you do this for the kids because, in coming years, like this is huge what we're going through right now. And this is definitely in the history books. And so encouraging your kids to keep a little bit of a journal, which they can then reflect back on, because we know that time changes our memory. And so I encourage you to keep a journal, one, as a self-care strategy, but also as kind of a bit of a historical record of what's happening. Good nutrition. And so, as I said, nutrition really is something I'm very passionate about. Now might be a time when you decide, now you're not commuting as much, that you want to spend a little bit more time looking at meal plans or looking at meal prep. So I strongly recommend as many fresh fruit and vegetables that are possible. Why? Because we need all of those nutrients. They're the ingredients our body uses to create the feel-good neurotransmitters. And so we put good stuff in, it's going to come out in the way we feel, the way that we're thinking. It's going to help improve our immunity overall. So definitely thinking about some good nutrition. As I said earlier, trying to avoid some of the stimulants and the sugars because they speed up your body, which is going to continue to activate any anxiety or fear that you may be experiencing. The other thing to be aware of is good nutrition is if you don't want to eat it, don't buy it. Simple, right? So, now with the reduction in access to supermarkets, particularly with online delivery, we're probably not shopping as often as we were. And so if it's not in your pantry, you can't eat it. And so when you go shopping, don't necessarily buy foods that are perhaps, that aren't healthy for you, because if it's not there, it's a lot harder to get. So really focusing on that good nutrition. I think I've covered sleep. The seeking support, I think I covered in the identifying resources. So something else to say there, yeah, definitely with the telehealth for mental health support as well. Looking to see if your organisation has an employee assistance program, Lifeline, Kids Helpline, Men's Helpline. There's a lot of services that have gone online now if they weren't previously. So looking at what's available in your local area. Looking at saying no when you need to. So setting those boundaries is really important. We literally only have 24 hours in one day. So there's only so much we can do, right? So don't try and overload yourself yeah. Using hindsight, I love this phrase. I saw it on a meme on Facebook years ago, and it really resonates with me. So often we look back on a situation and we're really critical and we kind of go, what was I thinking? So we look back with hindsight, but there's that real critical flavor. I like the phrase hindsight because it's asking yourself, well, what was I learning? I truly believe that we are doing the best that we can with what we've got right now. And that's across the board. That's individuals, that's organizations, that's governments. There's a lot of criticism in social media, in different discussions around decisions that are being made. So both individual as well as collective decisions. And so I really like that phrase of hindsight and to looking at being a bit kinder to ourselves, being kinder to other people as well, trying to stop some of that criticism. So far at this point in time, anyway, at least here, that we are still allowed to go outside. So spending time in nature, spending time with pets, spending time with children can really bring us down to being more present as well. Watch comedies, so that's a great way to unwind. It's a great way to naturally release some of that serotonin. So, rather than perhaps scrolling through Facebook and reading people that are feeling really stressed as they're trying to manage all of the things that are happening right now, perhaps go to YouTube and search for something like cute puppies, or watch a stand-up comedian, because that can be a great way to help take those blinkers off. It's also, again, focusing on what you can control. Limit the amount of time you allow yourself to be exposed to some of that stress, because it's pretty overwhelming. Take a long bath, take a nap as well, particularly if you're not sleeping well. Reading a book. I think I've covered those ones there already. And coming back to that, snooze the news. Absolutely. Really limiting the time that you're exposed to a lot of that stress. So what does the T stand for? Time connected with others. So as humans, we best survive, we best deal with adversity when we're dealing with adversity with each other. So I've seen many people use the phrase, we're all in this together. And the fact is we are. This is global, having a global impact. So we might not be able to connect with people physically the way we used to, or socially the way we used to, but let's use technology. I've been having virtual coffees with my friends, virtual lunches. I'm connecting with some of my students online, more so than I previously were. Pick up the phone, make the phone calls, looking at using Zoom, Skype, WebEx, whatever the platform is, looking at really trying to schedule in. So coming back to the time management concept, schedule in time where you can still connect with others, and schedule in time to check on people that are a little bit more vulnerable as well. The U stands for understanding emotions. A great phrase that I really love is the concept that right now you're having a normal reaction to an abnormal situation. This is a really, really trying time for so many of us. So of course you're going to have an emotional reaction to that. Whatever your emotional reaction is, it's perfectly natural and normal. That I'll often talk with my clients about the concept of pain, so emotional pain. And so we have what we call clean pain. So we're born biologically being able to experience emotions such as sadness or depression, anxiety, and fear, guilt, happiness. There's not just what we label or what we judge as being negative emotions. There's positive emotions as well. But that clean pain, the grief that I feel after a loss, is really clean, and it's a real honor to the person or the situation that I'm grieving for. What happens though is that our clean pain in its raw form starts to then turn into dirty pain. How does that happen? When we judge it. So let's say I'm feeling really depressed about having lost work, and then my mind comes in and it starts judging that feeling of depression, and it turns from clean pain into dirty pain, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And so that judgment sounds like, oh, shouldn't be feeling this way. I should be more grateful. I should be doing this. I should be doing that. So there's often a lot of internal pressure that we put on ourselves. So understanding that you're going to have an emotional reaction, that's actually okay. Allow it to be there. Allow that space and kind of go, yeah, it's okay for me to be feeling whatever it is that I'm feeling at the moment. Could be anger. Anger is the fight. It's the fight part of the fight or flight response. Everyone's in it, or most people's nerves are frayed at this point in time. There's so much uncertainty. We don't know what tomorrow's going to hold in terms of work or regulations or restrictions. Acknowledging that's how most of us are feeling at this point in time. So acknowledge that clean pain. Allow yourself to have it. Ask yourself, can I just make space for this? But can I then connect with my values around kindness or compassion for myself or someone else? Or can I ask myself, who do I want to be right now? What do I want to stand for? How do I want to look back on this time of global crisis in terms of what I did? So allow that clean pain to be there. Try and take the judgment away. Try and limit becoming dirty pain and try and connect with your values in terms of what action to take next. Now, the D stands for Disinfecting Distance. I'd love to say that this is mine. This is actually from Russ Harris. He's written a great book called The Happiness Trap, amongst other books. And so I really like some of what's called ACT, Acceptance and Commitment Therapy, some of that framework. And so he also came up with an acronym which was called Face COVID. And so this was his D. Now, there's enough information around disinfecting. There's enough about social distancing, but look, let's just be grown-ups about this, right? We're all in this together. And then, of course, what's the E? Exercise daily. Now, that's not my area of expertise, but you know that Tamas and Barnabas is. So in our Fortified for Life group, Tamas has been uploading 15-minute workouts. So feel free to join us in that group. You'll get access to those live videos or the uploaded videos. Doesn't have to be with us though. There's so many different platforms that were already online or are now going online. It can be a 30-minute walking the dog, but just trying to move daily, particularly if you have moved online and your work has been a lot more active in terms of day-to-day movement. We want to try and replace that somehow. So yeah, looking at how you can make exercise as part of your daily routine. And then when life starts to kind of come back to normal, whatever that's going to look like post COVID-19, how can you keep the exercise as part of that daily routine now that this is a great opportunity for us to be able to start to be moving on a daily basis? So look, I just want to say thank you. Hopefully this has been really helpful for you. I hope that there's been something in this for you. Please feel free to ask me some questions. Let's get some interaction happening. Let's not, even though we might be self-isolating, it doesn't mean that we can't still connect. So thank you very much, and stay well, stay fortified.